Hey, Natasha.
Hey Claire,
How's it going?
I sound like a dying goat, but I'm fine.
Yeah, I think it's that time of year where it's like, it's just allergies, but it could also be COVID, strep, the cold, flu.
Right. I got my flu shot. I got my COVID shot. I'm hoping it's nothing, but you know how I am. I just like lose my voice sometimes,
Yes,
and I don't ever really get sick around losing my voice. It just happens.
that's true. And I know that there's like those things that you can buy that are the only thing that I can relate them to is like a garment steamer, but you could use it for your
Oh,
voice. Have you seen these?
no, I need it.
When I started teaching, I completely lost my voice like the first 2 months because I was talking so much, and so people recommended that, but I just used my garment steamer and it seemed to work the same.
I do have one. And that
Yes.
actually, I talked all day yesterday. I was in like meetings and teaching and all the things. Maybe that's what it is because I do feel fine. It's just I woke up without a voice.
It may just be too much
So I
talking.
need to garment steam my voice.
Yes, it just
Okay.
can get really hot, so don't go too close. Like
Okay.
waft in the
I have
steam.
hot tea right now, so I'm gonna just
Yeah, I think you
breathe
need more
this.
concentrated steam.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah, try that.
It's a good tip. I remember cough drop saved me when I started teaching.
Mm,
My voice would get like all scratchy and sore.
yes.
Was like a quick fix. But any
Yep.
teachers out there, if you have tips for saving your voice from teaching all day,
Yes, we all need that. I just keep chocolate in my drawer. That seems to help everything.
yes, it does. I have a
Mhm.
gigantic bag left from Halloween that I am slowly going through. And you're actually in your classroom right now.
I am, which is fun. I have a class in a couple, well, no, 1 hour, and so I'm excited to get to talk to you before that class starts. I have kindergarten, so we're going through the alphabet STEM curriculum, and today is letter F. So they're gonna be learning about things that float by making little foil boats,
Oh,
classic. And then friction. So we'll be rolling cars, toy cars down different surfaces and talking about friction. That'll be fun.
there is someone on Instagram that is doing our whole alphabet STEM series and is
Yes.
tagging us every week. So I need to look up who that is. So I've been trying to repost, but it's so fun because there's the one, I think it's letter T, and then they're using the popsicle sticks to make artwork. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I haven't seen that post. No.
It was this morning,
Oh.
and it was like stick to yourself, like kind of be yourself, and then they use a popsicle stick in their artwork and they draw about them.
Oh,
And it's
so
with the book
fun.
about the stick, I guess.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Clearly,
I'm
I didn't
so
make that product, but
no. But yeah, I saw that school is posting a bunch of our stuff. I think they're doing not just the alphabet STEM. I think they're also doing like STEM Explorers. They're doing a lot of our curriculum, which is awesome. It's really fun to see how other schools are doing what I'm also doing and what you're also have done.
it's the Windcroft STEM School. And they've have like zip line, and I've seen them do the cup tower
Yes.
challenge. They called it the cup pyramid challenge. And so then I know they did the letter U a couple of days ago with ultraviolet light, and umbrellas to keep their monster dry from the rain. It is so, so cute. And so this letter T that I was talking about, they explore temperature, tables, and tinkered with a stick after reading the book Sticks, written and illustrated by Diane Alder. Pretty cool.
Hmm. Awesome. So you just taught yesterday
Yeah,
on, you're making up curriculum as you go, aren't you?
I
With
guess.
your undergrads?
Aren't we all?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
No,
when I
I
say that I'm teaching our curriculum, I mean that I always, when we've talked about this all the time, I always intend on just doing what I've done before, but I can't do it. I have to change things up. It's just fun. So I'm always adding new things, and then I go back and add stuff to some of our products. But yeah, I love making up
Oh,
things.
speaking of adding things, so shout out to Julie, one of our Vivify team members. She's going through all the alphabet STEM lessons right now and
Mhm.
adding teacher slides. So if you are using that curriculum, you can start re-downloading. I think she's on letter E. And so they will all have teacher slides to go with it.
Yes, and I've started using them, and they're incredible. So, I am so grateful for our team members that make amazing teacher slides. That's something that I am terrible at.
Yeah, mine are just white and maroon.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the, like, templates that Google Slides has of slide
Yeah.
backgrounds,
Mhm.
that's what mine are. But, yeah, they add amazing pictures and visual aids that really help out in the classroom, and lots of links to really great videos and ways to kinda help, I use them as, like, cues because
Yeah,
I teach, like, 7 different classes in a day, and so remembering where I am on each class is really hard. But these slides make it really easy, especially the alphabet stem, because it has notes on the bottom that says, what supplies you need or what you're, even though the kids can't read a lot of the stuff, it's for the
it's
teacher.
for you. Yeah.
So super helpful. Start re-downloading those if you're working on alphabet stem.
Yes, definitely. And so my class, not alphabet STEM,
Yeah.
they are 18 to like 25-year-olds. So this is the physical science. I've been doing physics and chemistry. We're wrapping up the semester. And the one thing I changed that I hadn't really noticed in the past is they love stories, just like kindergarten,
Mhm.
but they are more fascinated by the story of the scientist. And I realized this when I dressed up as Marie Curie. Nobody guessed it, by the way, on our post on Halloween. I had the little
Really?
Instagram or and TikTok video, and
Yeah.
it was like my students were doing like elephant toothpaste, but all spooky themed. We had dry ice, and then I put a little picture of me, and I was like, well, "Who am I?" So I was dressed up as Marie Curie, and I was trying to be radioactive, and I had the element that she discovered, radium. And then there's this video. It's by TED, like the TED Talks, but they have like an education channel, and it's called "The Genius of Marie Curie." And it talks about her story, and it's so dramatic. And also like her love life, but her challenges of being recognized as a scientist and how they weren't going to give her the Nobel Prize. They were just going to give it to her husband and the other guy. And he was like, no, she deserves it. And then it turns out she became the first person to get 2 Nobel Prizes, but in different categories. So, like, amazing, amazing person. And my
Crazy.
students had never heard of her and knew
What?
anything about her. Yeah. And so they were like, "Who is she?" Like, they were so into it. So then yesterday, I was like, "Let's see how we can pull some more stories together." And we talked about, in general, so right now this new science TEKS, the standards in Texas are changing, and they're adding in STEM careers as a very explicit standard. And so teachers that are teaching science will also have to teach a little bit about STEM careers. And so we talked about what that is. And that's a whole other side conversation we can have. But their assignment, I only gave them 10 minutes, and I randomly gave them a person. And so they got people they'd heard of, like Isaac Newton, but then there was some like Rosalind Franklin, Ada Lovelace, trying to find some unique people throughout history that had made some like science engineering contribution. And so their job was to figure out information about that person and then tell the story in like 10 minutes.
So you didn't tell them who these people were, they had to
I just
research
gave
it?
them the name. They just drew a name out of a bucket
Oh,
and they got the name. And I was like, you have 10 minutes to throw something together, figure out who they are. Um, and it was really fun. And the best part, it was them having discussions and discovering these people. So one person that I had never heard of, and I have this book, it's called Inventors, Incredible Stories of the World's Most Ingenious Inventors.
ooh.
And this lady, I think it's Heidi Lamar. Have you heard of
Oh, Hedy Lamarr.
Hedy Lamar? Okay.
Mhm. She's amazing.
You want to, what do you remember about her?
So she was a famous actress,
Yeah.
but she also is a super genius because she laid the groundwork for, what is it? Like
It was for Wi-Fi.
For okay. But she, like, broke codes. She
Yeah.
did something
Uh-huh.
for the government where she figured out how to break codes, and it, like, led to all this other stuff that we now do. So Wi-Fi, I
Right.
think GPS is one of them. I think that's one of
Yep, and
okay.
phones.
Mhm.
Yeah, and she discovered that this was World War II, that torpedoes that are controlled by radio signals back then, they could easily be intercepted. And so she actually paired up with a composer and they figured out a way to code the signals to keep this interception from happening. And this is now called frequency hopping spread spectrum and was later used by the US Navy. And then they turned it into technology that we use on our mobile phones and Wi Fi. But it's crazy because she was just known as actually quoted as the most beautiful woman in the world. And she starred in all these films, but rarely spoke. Like they just like, oh, she's so beautiful, kind of like
Pretty
smart
face.
but dumb, kind of was her what people thought of her. But on
Mhm.
the back side, like she was inventing crazy stuff, and they were also kind of poking fun of her a little bit because she also invented things that weren't great.
Oh,
Like
really?
she was trying to make carbonated drinks, and there was a tablet she would put in like water, and it would make it carbonated, but it tasted horrible. But I mean, like, that's part of it, right? Part of being an inventor, you
Yes.
go through all the bad stuff to get to like amazing, groundbreaking technology.
You know what would be a great book that I would buy is if they published a book on all these inventors and all the terrible failures that they had, like
Yeah.
famous inventors. They're like
Mhm.
Benjamin Franklin, here's all of his failures. I think that would be a really good book.
Just call it like the failures of famous people
Yes.
or something. Yeah. And you could start with like this person eventually did this, but here's a list of everything that went wrong. Like how many light bulbs they had to go through.
Yes, that's like a famous quote, like
Mhm.
1,000 or something like that, that Edison did.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, to show and that's something that I teach when I teach about failure is I show famous people and I ask like I show all their pictures to my students and I say, "Okay, what do all these people have in common?" And it'll be like Oprah, Michael Jordan, Winston Churchill, and they'll all be like, "Oh, they're all famous." I'm like, besides that." And we get down to they were all huge failures. J.K. Rowling
Mhm.
saying that, how many times did they fail? Like Winston Churchill, I think he failed out of high school or something like that.
Right.
Michael Jordan didn't make his high school basketball team.
I think he did.
Um, Oprah Winfrey was fired from some sort of news station because they said she wasn't good on TV. J.K. Rowling didn't get published by like some crazy number of publishers, like 10 publishers said no, her book ideas were not good before she went on to sell Harry Potter. So like all these people showing them that these people didn't just make it because they were some sort of brilliant, you know, knew the system. They were failures, but they persevered. And so I think being
Right.
able to show make scientists real, make these people that we hold up on pedestals in their STEM careers as being human is huge. And I'm glad that they're adding that to the standards.
Yeah. Okay, crazy story. Dmitry Mendeleev, the one that was behind the periodic table as we know it today,
Uh-huh.
I played his video to my class. And this, do you know his story and kind of like the
No.
perseverance aspect?
Mm-mm.
All right, so I'm gonna completely butcher it, but the gist of it is he was in Russia, really rural town, had like a million brothers and sisters. His dad passes away, unfortunately, and so it's I think he was the oldest, and then it was his mom trying to kind of take care of everyone. But she believed in him and was like, "You are brilliant. You're going to be a famous chemist someday." So she built him a chemistry lab in a barn on their farm. Okay. So he's just like making chemical reactions, doing stuff, blows up the barn. Okay. Catches it on fire. And she's like, "Don't worry about it. I still believe in you." So
What?
then she was like, "Okay." So he turns like 17. "I'm going to take you to the main university in Moscow in Russia, and you need to get an education if you're going to make something of yourself." So they get on a like horse and carriage, the two of them. I don't know what happened to the siblings, but the two of them,
They blew up.
I don't, let's hope not. 1,200 miles or something. For months, they're traveling to get to this university. They get there, he's begging, like, let me in. And they're like, well, what's your education? And, he's like just begging and begging to get in. And they realize with all this persistence, okay, let's give him a shot. So he gets in. His mom dies the next day. She's like, my job is done. You have made
What?
it to university, right? What happened to the children? I don't know. So then he goes to this university, and then the story from there is just like more wild stuff. But just his perseverance and like figuring out these patterns of the periodic table. And then he didn't want anybody else to like know what he knew. So he wasn't like publishing things until he kind of had figured everything out.
Mhm.
But where he really became known is there was this element. So there's like a bunch of holes at that point in the periodic table, right? Hadn't discovered everything. And so some scientist comes out and is like, I have discovered a new element. And Dimitri reads it and was like, no, this is wrong. Like, your data does not match my periodic table. And the guy's like, have you ever done an experiment with it? And he's like, no, I just know. Like, my imaginary framework tells me that you're wrong. And so basically they find out that the guy who's doing the experiments messed up, and Dimitri's data was right. And that's when they realized this is a powerful tool in determining these patterns of the element.
Whoa.
So it's a good story.
That is a good story. Man. So my takeaway from that is, as a mom,
Yeah.
how can I foster that perseverance in my child and not die?
Well, what I got from is she modeled the perseverance. She was like,
Yeah,
it doesn't matter that your dad passed away. Like, we're going to make this happen for you. I'm going to build you a lab in the barn. It blew up. It's okay.
it's okay.
We're going to keep going. Just keep asking. So I think that's the most important, is showing to our kids and our students, like, we also don't give up, and
Mhm.
modeling that behavior.
Yep, the only true failure is giving up, for
Yep,
sure.
exactly.
Yeah.
So where we started with this is these stories. So I had the students take a few minutes, learn about these people, and then they presented it to the class. And they could do it in any way. So they could make a poster, they could do a dramatic reenactment of Isaac Newton getting hit by an apple, which is not a real story, but so they had a lot of fun with it. One group, kind of an ad here for Canva, in 5 minutes turned around like a beautifully made presentation in Canva. They're like, yeah, we sent you the link. And I was like,
What?
you got this 5 minutes ago. And she's like, yeah, it was beautiful. It was super fun. And I think the best part was their discovery of these stories, and just kind of taking ownership, and then like debating so like with Isaac Newton, the conversations I heard, oh, well, he discovered calculus, or discovered, this way of doing math. And someone was like, he didn't discover it, he invented it. It's totally made up. And they're like,
Mm.
no, it's real. He discovered it. So they're having these like really interesting debates about it. So super fun. And I think it's a great way to tell these stories and kind of weave it through the content. So what are ways, Claire, you bring in careers?
Well, all of our lessons have career connections. So we're really big on STEM careers. We've talked about in the past, if kids don't see it, then they can't be it. So we always want to show them opportunities. I know when I was little and I wanted to be an astronaut, and then some, people always like, oh, you want to be an astronaut? That's cute. You should do that. And then I had a teacher once that said, well, how do you do that? And I'd never been asked that before. I was like, well, I don't know. And they said, well, what kind of degree do you get? I I don't know. Where do you go to school? I don't know. So I had to do a project figuring that out. And so unless we tell kids, well, if you want to do something like this is what you need to do, and this is what you need to study. This is what type of job you would have to get some experience. Then they won't know. So you have to show them that path. So I think that's super important. One way I'm doing that actually today with my first graders is they like stories. And so I'm reading books that have to do with STEM careers. I like to show them real stories. So there's all these really good books about how things were invented, most of them by accident, like the guy who invented the what's it called? Popsicle. That's a really good book. and it tells you how you can make your own at the end, which is fun.
Oh,
But there's a book that I'm reading today called Full of Beans, and oh, what's it by? Uh, Peggy Thong. I don't know if I can read that really well, and I can't move because I'm stuck to my lapel mic. But it talks about the story of Henry Ford and building cars. But what it I'd never heard of before until this book is he talked about how he wanted to be able to help farmers as well and to make a sustainable car that was friendly for the environment. So he started making car parts out of soybeans. So it was
hmm.
like plastic made out of soy. And fascinating story, and really talks about how this guy cared so much. He ended up making a suit out of soybeans too. uh, Really crazy. Of course, this never took off, this soybean card. Don't know what happened to it. Nobody really knows, like, why didn't this, like, happen? But I'm gonna be showing my students how you can make plastic out of soybean oil. So we'll
Mm,
be doing that, next class period after I read this book. So I love talking about how you can use science and engineering in different types of careers and different types of applications, and so that's one way that I'm doing that today with first grade. But I know we also love to play the STEM career bingo game, which is a
mhm.
favorite. That's what I use for sub plans to expose
Yes.
kids to new different types of STEM careers.
And of course, are they a scientist, engineer? Neither game.
Yes, that's a really good one. I always start the year off with that, and they always choose the lab coat model as being a scientist. I'm like, no, this guy is just from a magazine.
Right.
Don't have to wear a lab coat to be a scientist. So,
One
yeah.
debate we are having in my class, which I talked about earlier, is like, how do you define a STEM career?
Mm.
And maybe we just tease that for a later episode because I think we could have a whole conversation because STEM is becoming, like this big buzzword in education, but it's also tied to STEM careers. So, yeah,
Ooh. Yep. That's a great question. Let's leave that one hanging for the next
let's do it.
time. So, let us know. Give us an email or a comment if you have questions about STEM careers or other ones that we could tie into the next episode. Comment with what you think defines a STEM career. But until then, STEM space out.